May 2nd, 2008, 6:32 a.m. See you in the comments? My cell phone chirped, and I grabbed it before Mom or Frankie, or God forbid, Dad heard it. It was still early and dim outside. One of those tough mornings to wake up to. Summer break was right around the corner, which meant 3 months of sleeping in and not having to put up with Garvin High. Not that I hated school or anything, but Christy Bruder was, like always, giving me trouble on the bus, and I had a D in science because of a quiz I forgot to study for, and finals were going to be a killer this year. Nick had been a little quiet lately. In fact, he hadn't shown up at school for 2 days, and had texted me all day long, asking about the shits in homeroom, or the fat bitches in PE, or that scab McNeil. He'd been hanging around with this guy Jeremy for the last month, and every day he seemed to pull further and further away from me. I was afraid he was going to break up with me, so I just played along like it was no big deal, that we hardly ever saw each other anymore. I didn't want to push him. He'd been so volatile lately, and I didn't want to start a fight. I didn't ask him what he was doing on those days he didn't show up, and instead just texted him back that the shits in Bio 2 need to be dunked in formaldehyde, and that I hate those bitches, and that McNeil is lucky I don't have a gun. That last one would really come back to bite me later. Really, they all would. But that last one would make me vomit every time I thought about it for a long time. And it would inspire a 3-hour conversation between me and Detective Panzella. And it would make my dad forever look at me differently, like I was some sort of monster deep down, and he could see it. Jeremy was this older guy, like 21 or something, who'd graduated from Garvin a few years ago. He didn't go to college. He didn't have a job. From what I could tell, all Jeremy did was beat up his girlfriend and sit around smoking pot and watching cartoons all day. Until he met Nick, and then he stopped watching the cartoons and started smoking his dope with Nick, and only beat up his girlfriend on nights when he wasn't in Nick's garage, playing drums, too stoned to remember she existed. On the rare occasions I'd been over there when Jeremy was there, Nick was a totally different guy. Someone I didn't even recognize, really. For a long time, I thought maybe I just never knew Nick at all. Maybe when Nick and I were watching TV in his basement, or dunking each other at the pool and laughing, I was totally not seeing the real Nick. Like, the real Nick was the one that showed up when Jeremy came over. That hard-eyed, selfish Nick. I'd heard of women who were completely blind and ignored all these signs that their man was some sort of pervert or monster. But no way could you convince me I was one of them. When Jeremy wasn't around, when it was just me and Nick and I looked in Nick's eyes, I knew what I saw and it was good. He was good. He had a sick sense of humor sometimes, we all did, but no way did we mean it. So sometimes it makes sense to me that maybe it was Jeremy who put those ideas about shooting up the school in Nick's head. Not me, Jeremy. He's the bad guy. He's the one. I picked up the cell and fumbled it down under the covers where I had been slowly waking up to the idea that I had to get through another school day. Hello? Baby. Nick's voice was thin, almost wired sounding, although at the time I just figured that was because it was so early, and Nick hardly ever got up early anymore. Hey, I whispered. Going to school today for a change? He chuckled, sounded really happy. Yeah, Jeremy's going to drive me. I pulled myself to a sitting position. Cool. Stacy was asking about you yesterday. Said she saw you and Jeremy driving out toward Blue Lake. I let the unspoken question hang in the air. Yeah. I heard the flick of his lighter and the crackle of a cigarette filter. He exhaled. We had some stuff to do out there. Like... He didn't answer. Just the sound of the filter burning and his steady exhale. Disappointment washed over me. He wasn't going to tell me. I hated the way he was acting. He'd never kept secrets from me before. We'd always talked about everything, even the hard stuff like our parents' marriages and the names kids called us at school, and how sometimes we felt like nothing, like less than nothing. I almost pressed him, told him I wanted to know. I deserved to know, but decided to change the subject instead. If I was finally going to get to see him, I didn't want to waste that time fighting with him. Hey, I've got some names for the list. I said. Who? I rubbed the corners of my eyes with my fingertips. People who say sorry after everything. Fast food commercials. And Jessica Campbell. Jeremy, I almost added, but thought better of it. That skinny blonde chick that goes out with Jake Deal? Uh-huh. But Jake's okay. I mean, a little jockish, but he's no way as annoying as her. Yesterday in health, I was totally just spacing out, and I guess I was looking in her direction. So all of a sudden she looks at me and goes, "What are you looking at, Sister Death?" And she had this scowl on her face, and she rolled her eyes and goes, "Hello? Mind your own business." And I was all, "Trust me, I don't give a shit about what you were saying anyway." And she was like, "Don't you have a funeral to go to?" And then her stupid friend started laughing like she was some sort of stand-up comedian or something. She's such a bitch. Yeah, you're right. He coughed. I heard a rattle of papers being turned and could imagine Nick sitting on his mattress writing in the red spiral notebook we shared. All those blonde chicks should just disappear. At the time I laughed. It was funny. I agreed with him. At least I said I did. And okay, I really thought I did. I didn't feel like a horrible person, but I laughed because to me, they were the horrible people. They deserved it. Yeah, they should be run over by their parents' Beamers, I said. I put that Shell girl on the list, too. Good one. She won't shut up about making varsity. I don't know what her problem is. Yeah, well. We sat in silence for a minute. I don't know what Nick was thinking. At the time, I took his silence to be some sort of unspoken agreement with me, like we were speaking at the same time in some wavelength that had no breath. But now, I know that's just one of those inferences Dr. Healer was always telling me about. People do it all the time. Assume that they know what's going on in someone else's head. That's impossible. And to think it's possible is a mistake. A really big mistake. A life-ruining one if you're not careful. I heard some mumbling in the background. Gotta go, Nick said. We gotta take Jeremy's kid to daycare. His girlfriend's being a pain in the ass about it. See you in the comments? Sure. I'll have Stacy save us a seat. Cool. Love you. You too, baby. I hung up smiling. Maybe whatever was bugging him was resolved. Maybe he was getting sick of Jeremy and Jeremy's kid, and Jeremy's cartoons and Jeremy's pot. Maybe I could talk him into skipping lunch and walking with me across the highway to Casey's for a sandwich. Just the two of us, like old times. Us sitting on the concrete median, picking onions off our sandwiches and asking each other music trivia questions, our shoulders butted up against one another, our feet swinging. I jumped in the shower without bothering to turn on the light and stood enveloped by the steam in the dark, hoping maybe Nick would bring me something special today. He was pretty good at that, showing up to school with a rose he'd picked up at the gas station, or sliding a candy bar into my locker between classes, slipping a note into my notebook when I wasn't looking. When he wanted to, Nick had a hell of a romantic side. I got out of the shower and dried off. I took extra time on my hair and eyeliner, and wore a torn black denim miniskirt with my favorite pair of striped black and white tights, with the hole in the knee. I stuffed my feet into socks and a pair of canvas shoes and grabbed my backpack. My little brother Frankie was eating cereal at the kitchen table. His hair was spiked, and he looked like one of those kids in Pop-Tart commercials. Perfectly coiffed skater types. Frankie was 14 and totally full of himself. He thought he was some sort of fashion guru and was always dressed so stylishly he looked like he just popped out of a catalog. We were close, despite the fact that we tend to hang out with totally different crowds, and we had completely different definitions of what was cool. He could be annoying at times, but most of the time he was a pretty good little brother. He had his American history textbook open on the table next to him and was frantically scribbling on a piece of notebook paper, stopping only to shovel a bite of cereal into his mouth every so often. Shooting a hair gel commercial today? I asked, bumping into his chair with my hip on the way past. What? He said, running the palm of his hand over the spikes of his hair. The ladies love it. I rolled my eyes, smiling. I'll bet. Dad leave yet? He took another bite of cereal and went back to writing. Yeah, he said around the food in his mouth. He left a few minutes ago. I grabbed a waffle out of the freezer and popped it into the toaster. I see you were too busy with the ladies to do your homework last night, I teased, leaning over him to read what he was writing. What did the women in the Civil War era think of excess hair gel exactly? Give me a break, he said, bumping me with his elbow. I was talking to Tina until midnight. I gotta get this done. Mom will freak if I get another C in history. She'll take my cell phone away again. Okay, I said. I'll leave you alone. Far be it from me to stand between you and Tina's riveting phone romance. The waffle popped up out of the toaster and I grabbed it. I took a bite of it, plain. Speaking of Mom, is she driving you again today? He nodded. Mom drove Frankie to school every day, dropping him off on her way to work. It gave him a few extra minutes in the morning, which I guess would be nice. But since it would require me to sit within 3 feet of my mom, and thus spend every morning hearing how my hair looks atrocious, and my skirt is too short, and why does a beautiful girl like you want to ruin her looks with all that makeup and hair dye? I preferred to stand on the curb and wait for the bus full of jocks to come get me. And that's saying something. I looked at the clock on the stove. The bus would be coming any minute. I shouldered my backpack and took another bite out of my waffle. I'm out of here, I said, heading for the door. Good luck with your homework. See ya, he called to my back as I stepped out on the front porch, closing the door behind me. The air felt crisper than usual. It felt like winter was on the verge of rushing in on us rather than spring. Like right now, the day was the warmest it was going to get.